And I'm looking at her pull it off because she's wincing. She's doing this. And I said, wait a minute, when you does that hurt when you pull that? And she goes, yeah, I think I have some hair, like fine hair, and it hurts. I said, pull it harder. Pull it harder. Pull it harder.
Just shake the
Muster
table.
up
That
the
makes
courage of
much.
Glorilla.
Everybody, welcome back to the Long Roll Podcast. I am one half of your hostess with the mostest, Griff, your resident old Air Force photographer, flight chief for Airman Magazine, sometimes stand-in editor-in-chief for Airman Magazine, long time definitely not National Geographic, Janiqua, but National Marketing Photo Manager for the Air Force and Space Force. And also, the most important, why we're here today, Social Media Manager to the best workshop in the world, the Eddie Adams Workshop.
Hell yeah. And I am Janiqua, resident Air Force photographer with only 9.75 years.
Halfway there.
Bad bitch rap connoisseur,
Love it.
and lover of Sprite. So,
oh wow, there we go. Something new. I'll take it. I'll take it. Well, I have something I'm curious to get your thoughts on, because we see it all the time, all over the social medias. But what are your thoughts when you see those inspirational quotes pop up on your feed?
You know, there is no better people to look at for inspirational quote than bad bitch rappers. They honestly take the cake every single time. Glorilla comes to mind immediately with her illustrious quote, at the end of the day gotta end.
Day gotta end.
We love it. We love to see it. Or Megan Thee Stallion with bad bitches have bad days too. Just reminding everyone,
yes,
everybody goes through things,
Yes.
Everybody goes through things, so.
I mean, if you see the lower back tat on me by the time I get out and separate, all I have to say is mind your business.
Yes,
mind your business.
It's what you need, honestly, because, Griff, honestly, if you start to think of yourself as a hot girl, your confidence will be
the energy. I mean, thank you. I haven't really had someone offer me that kind of intense feedback before, but there's a lot of reflecting that's going to go on by the time we're done recording this.
Yeah, you'll be a hottie. It'll be good. It'll be good.
Ridiculousness to the side. Why I bring that up is our guest that we have this week, Marvin Joseph, I think reigns as king of the inspirational quotes in the photo world.
Yes, he does.
And I got a couple, and I know, and you have a lot of experience because you had the opportunity to actually work hand in hand with him at last year's workshop. But I want to run a couple of these quotes by you that we learned with our experience sitting down with him together. I know something that definitely inspired me is beating my grandma at basketball. Again, with no context, you might not know how that's inspiring, but by the time of the episode, you will. Yes. What else do we have? And so there's also patience of a tree trunk. Yes. That one stuck with me.
Honestly, that phrase in itself could be a sermon. I'm thinking back to my time in the Baptist church, and that could be a whole sermon,
And the last one that I'll go with is there's some obtuse shit going on here. And again, you all would be shocked. And I guess maybe by the time you're done listening to this, you won't be shocked that you can challenge yourself and see if you have a longer list than what we had by the time we were done. So I have 24 quotes from Marvin Joseph. But other than his silliness of inspiring us, he's an incredible human being, and he's had an incredible career as a professional photographer that I think started around 13, 14 years old. And from there, definitely got ingrained into the Washington Post family, where there was a lot of nurturing, a lot of growing. There was a lot of working with some of the industry's best photographers that have existed on planet Earth. And that is truly a testament, because when you see his work, it definitely, I feel, reflects that.
Yeah, I had the, like you said, amazing experience of being IT on his team last year. And so watching, each of us interact with the students, Marvin Joseph is special because he can look at your take and see what your personality is as a photographer and challenge you to get the things that you're not seeing. So there were plenty of students who either had the strength of getting overalls and being further
Mm-hmm.
back from their subjects and stuff like that, or of being too up close and personal and into the subject's face. And so what he could do is inspire you to get the other side of it and to see things that you weren't naturally seeing. And so it was incredible to watch him use humor and comedy, but
Right.
also if you're paying attention and you're listening to what he's saying, he's giving you gems, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
things that will advice that will help you throughout your career. And so that was the best thing about working with him, was his sense of humor, larger than life personality,
Right.
and then all the great advice that he was giving to the students. So
Janiqua, you inspired me through the inspiration that he spreads to others to get out of my own way. We can stop our rambling and let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode. Let's go ahead and introduce our guest, Marvin Joseph. So I'll just jump into it. But Marvin, thank you for joining us on today's Long Roll podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I can offer any insight. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I've had quite a fun time in photography.
And
to
I
say
know
the
we're
least.
excited to dive into that. I know and my first experience with you is last year, like being the social media manager for the workshop. I had the opportunity to highlight all the team leaders as we get close to the workshop day. So the students can get to know some of the incredible talent and faces that they're going to see there, to try our best to minimize the shock when they're in front of you, to where they have the confidence to say hello and to be welcomed into your presence. And I know what I saw in your B&H Expo presentation, your Marvin Sphere. And it's and I love that. I love that, by the way.
I'm a
But
mutant.
just, but your work, I was just blown away as I'm sitting there trying to find the right kind of images to try to showcase your talents. It's so broad. I couldn't do it in 10 images, but I tried my best to choose the 10 I put up there. And hopefully you
Okay.
didn't hate me too much, but again,
No. That's
incredible,
cool.
blown away. And thank you. Yeah. I mean, that was my introduction to you. And then also speaking with Janiqua, just the energy you have is infectious. And so with that, I'd like to ask you about your origin story. And it's one of the
Okay.
first things that we'd like to get into is not necessarily the first time you picked up the camera, but can you
Okay.
share with us, can you remember the first time that actually you remember a camera being presented into your life? Was it a
Yes.
grandfather taking portraits, or, what was that?
Well, I'm gonna give you my Peter Parker story.
I love,
Yes.
So
yes.
the moment that the radioactive spider or whatever the hell it was bit Peter Parker, I had that moment.
Yes.
I had that moment. I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it was many, 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 many moon cycles ago. I was 14 years old. I went to high school in McKinley Tech in Northeast DC. And in ninth grade, at that time we were required, ninth graders were required to take a course called laboratory skills. My science teacher, his name was Mr. McMullen. For short, we called him Mr. Mac. And the classroom was divided. One half of the classroom was an actual classroom, the other half was an actual lab. Okay. And there was a doorway that divided the two. Anyway, class is over. I follow behind him to ask him something about homework or whatever. And when I went into the lab part of the room, he was standing there, and he had all these Pentax K1000s sitting on the counter. And I was like, "Man, what's this?" And he said, "Oh, what is this? What's going on here?" And he says, "Oh," and then he looked at me like, "Oh, you don't know? I have a photography club." I was like, "Come on. Oh my gosh, can I pick one of them up? Show me how to use this thing." And that was the moment that I got bit. That's the moment.
I
And
love it.
so at that moment, he showed me how to use the camera. He let me take it home. I had a camera with me every day from 14 to, you know, 18. That I had it with me every day. So I was in a dark room, you know, for 4 years, just for all after hours. He used to have to come in there and knock on it like, "All right, Marv, you got to come out of here. We're locking up." It would be 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So this went on from 14 to 18.
I love
That's
that.
the moment. So yeah. And you know, I tell everybody that like my origin as a is really a photographer first. I got into photography because I really loved it. I really enjoy photography itself. The photojournalism aspect came later. That would happen when I started at the Washington Post as a news aide, and so the news aide, what we called them copy aides. We called them copy aides. Each section of the newspaper at that time, style section, sports section, national section, they have a news aide, but there was a copy aid section. The news aid was the step above the copy aid. Okay, because this time you got to be a solo copy aid for a section. But in the copy aid station, it was multiple copy aids, and I was one of them. So anyway, I was 19, and I would end up meeting. I think the first Washington photographer I met was Michael Williamson. Michael Williamson then introduced me
Wow.
to one of my mentors who was the deputy photo editor of the photo department, and she became my mentor, and the rest of the photo department adopted me. So kind of so the photojournalism is what they taught me, and so
Mhm.
that's how that village raised me in that. So that's how I got roped into photojournalism. But my initial love is photography
Hmm.
itself. So that's how I got hooked. Yeah.
Mhm.
I love
Yeah,
that.
and
First
there.
off, I want to make a connection between you and Janiqua in the dark room. Janiqua, it sounds like he was a lot more productive
Yeah.
when it came to a little bit of backstory, Janiqua, if you want to provide context, if at all. I know with her because she was exposed to the dark room in high school as well, but she didn't actually use it for photography. She was using
Yeah.
it to meet her interests and
Okay.
progress those.
Okay.
Kudos to
Okay.
her. Um,
I wish
and,
I wasn't in that, wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
there's always a
and,
girl,
and now that I think back, I'm like,
always.
I didn't even, I don't know why I didn't even,
mhm.
I
You
was
were
so caught
pure.
up
You
in,
were
maybe it was
pure
the
of
picture,
heart.
Yeah.
I'm just a sinner. I'm just
I'm like,
a sinner.
I
It's
really
terrible.
was too. I really was too. Naive and everything.
But
Well, now
also
I'm El
too,
Diablo, right?
oh, yeah.
Um,
But also too, I love it because it makes me reflect back on my high school as well. I wouldn't be where I'm at without my graphics teacher, Mr.
mm,
Batista, and the exposure to like the first ever Photoshop.
mm,
And what that did is where when I got to basic training, for a lot of people that have listened to a lot of these episodes, and I talk about my introduction to the Air Force, I wasn't supposed to be a photographer. I was supposed to be a load master. But when they ended up losing my contract and I had to go into this open general field, they give you this piece of paper. They're like, okay, what are special skills that you may have that may aid into the reasoning of why you put photography as a job that you like to do? And I put on there, I remembered Photoshop, I remembered Illustrator and stuff like that. So I feel that when the person that looked at that piece of paper and they saw that connection between those two things, that's probably gave me that splitting hair's edge to get one of these prestigious spots within the Air Force. And if it wasn't for Mr. Batista in that class and those experiences, and again, using the dark room to actually print and get the school newspaper out, Janiqua, then again, I wouldn't be here today with this
mm.
conversation and the bonds and the experiences that. So thank you for letting me reflect back, hearing your story. And so with that, what does that look like? And so, because I would be intimidated as a teenager going into such any kind of professional environment, especially one of the top the newspapers in the country. How did you have the confidence to find yourself navigate yourself in that environment?
So I think part of it was it's hard to like I still even though I'm much older now, I'm still young at heart, and I there's probably a lot I just don't remember, meaning because it was so many moons ago. But I was very much more raw than I am now. So I was not shy going up to people and getting into their personal space. Not that I wanted to, I just didn't know any better. I would, hey, how you doing? Like I was, and so it's like who is this guy? So anyway, I would at some point become lovable and probably annoying to others. But I, uh, I was never really shy, like in that regard, like when it came to people. Part of it is I am a natural people person. So that if people knew me from back then and now, they'll probably see the same person. It's just that I'm older. They're going to see that, yep, he's still crazy. Yep, he's still funny. Yep, he's still, I'm not really shy in that regard. Um, so anyway, the Post family, though, meaning the photographers, the writers, the editors, everybody there just because it was an environment because young people were in the newsroom. That's number one. So and of various levels, right? College students, working on their masters or whatever it was. It was a learning newsroom. It was a mentoring newsroom. And I think many newsrooms could stand to have that today. I don't think I think more of us need to continue that aspect. But anyway, when I was younger, it was that newsroom was very, very, very nurturing and mentoring. And so, and if you needed, you had resources when you worked there. Think about it. Like, hey, what kind of car should I buy? There was the late great Warren Brown, who wrote for the
Mm-hmm.
Post and sometimes with Car and Driver. So it's like, hey, Warren, I want a car that can do this. Warren could tell you the year, make, and model.
Wow. Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
go to the best real estate writer, right? You can go to her and say, hey, I'm looking for this price point. What do you think? And then off the top of her head, she could say, boom, boom, boom. So I think that was one of the blessings that even when I was younger, I didn't even understand the magnitude of. But if I needed help writing a paper, writing anything, I had hundreds of editors at my disposal. I didn't really think about it or realize it at that time, but I'm just giving you an example of the kind of environment that I was in. And so I think it's hard to fail. I think it's hard to fail when you're in that kind of environment. And so at that time, I was a photographer. I wasn't a staff photographer, and I certainly wasn't a photojournalist at that time. But they would take me on and train me. And Vanessa Hillian was the deputy photo editor. She was the mentor, so she was like the go-to person. And then eventually, I would go ahead and meet Michael Ducille and Joe Elbert. But
Wow.
she
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
the main person that had to kind of get me whipped into shape before I could even get to a Michael or a Joe, right?
Mhm.
So, but she always mentored youngins. She always did. So that was a part of her thing. That was something that she took on. But that was what the newsroom was like back then. Like not just the photo department, all throughout that newsroom. So I was very fortunate, very, very, very early on, very early on.
So one of the things I think I
That
got
is
two questions in my head, right? But I think the most pressing one right now is like starting off just purely doing photography and then learning the photojournalism side and learning how to marry story and writing with that. When did you finally start to feel like you were getting it and that it was coming together and that you could bring your creativity to that work?
okay. So I guess I would say my early, I guess my obviously my early years. There was a lot of the photo basics like you know I had to learn the storytelling aspect. So like what is it? I kind of had an idea of what a photo essay is, but the whole narrative idea that came with the Washington Post. So I would get assignments eventually, right? So there's this time period where I'm shooting assignments. Like one of the exercises, prime example. So Vanessa says to me, she says, you need to try to find some kind of story or photo essay to work on. Shoot it, and then I'll edit it. Like, and if it's good enough, we can publish it. So at the time, DC, and I think they still have it. I don't know now, but they had the city paper, Washington City paper, and I was looking through the city paper to see what events were taking place, stuff like that. And so, so anyway, um, there was a bodybuilding show, and I'd never been to a bodybuilding show before. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought, hey, that could make some good pictures. I didn't even. I was just. Some of this was like autopilot in a way. I didn't even know what I was about to step into,
The
kind of
crazy
thing.
culture of
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Had no idea. Had no idea. But I thought it could be fascinating, and I'd never been in that culture before, and I didn't know anything. But I thought this could be kind of cool to practice on. So I called the person that the promoter for that show called him up and said, "Hey, I'm a Washington Post, photographer, I'd like to come photograph the show. Do you mind? Da, 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 da. And he said, sure, come. And I said, I want to be able to shoot backstage, and I wanted carte blanche, basically. So he said,
Mm-hmm.
sure, you can go wherever you want. So I photographed everything,
Wow.
and again, I didn't know what I was doing. I was fascinated, like, wow, look at this. So I photographed it, brought it back to Vanessa, and she liked it. And so so that was my first essay published in the Washington Post. And I think that was back in 1997. Yeah. So that was the first time that I had, my first photo essay published. So at that time, establishing it was in my head more like photo essay. It still wasn't, it was a narrative, but it was a de facto narrative. It was going to be one by nature of it being an
Mm-hmm.
event. So I think I would say by the time I mean, for a long time, I didn't think I was good at photo stories at all for a long time. Um, I think that I did work on a few photo essays that ended up being successful. They won in contests and everything. Um, I would say by the time those kinds of stories started winning, I felt like I had a handle on how to do a narrative, how to do a photo story, how to be a photojournalist in that regard, versus trying to shoot a singular picture for the cover of Metro Front or a
Mm-hmm.
singular picture for the cover of the front, the A section of the Post. So it's like they're separate, separate things. So anyway, I would say maybe by my late 20s, early 30s, I kind of felt a little bit more confident about how to do a photo story, because it's very different than shooting a collection of pictures. That's why
Right.
I'm going in that direct, like the
Yeah.
clicking of actually being able to like create a narrative with your camera, actually doing that, which sometimes a photo essay, it may or may not have a narrative. It may have a likeness. So that's
Right.
why there's like photo essay and then a photo story. When you look at some of the Pulitzer Prize winning photo stories that have won over the last whenever, you see the narrative. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the challenge. Like, it's easy to shoot a collection of pictures. I think photo essays, in my opinion, are easier to do. I think photo essays are very easy to do. I think doing the narrative part, like adding that takes some sophistication and ingenuity, and then trying to show something intangible is extremely challenging. How do you show hope? How do you show that? How do you show love? How do you show, like, I need a set of pictures that show this. This is what the story is
Mm-hmm.
about. And I want to show that sentence. What if people couldn't read? What if they could only read pictures? Will they understand the narrative? So I think that's the basic way. And I think I would say by my early 30s, I kind of had a better handle on it. But those early years, remember I started the Post in my 20s. So the early years of the early 20s, it was a lot of just shooting a lot of assignments daily, and that practice makes perfect kind of thing. And a lot of them weren't necessarily photo stories. They were assignments that required pictures. So you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And you could try to spin it into
Right.
you would
Right. Yeah.
at best you could try to spin it into an essay at best, right? And then there are times you have something that's an actual story, like the traumatic brain injury story.
Hmm.
That was something that I had to go to. Michael Ducille made me go back again and again and again. I worked on that story for 7 months.
Wow.
And so, and it was because of him. He pushed, because I was like, Michael, the guy's sitting in the hospital bed. I've been 3, 4 times. It's the same picture over and over again. But he kept saying, be
Mm-hmm.
patient, go back, go back, go back. He knew I was impatient. He knew that,
Right.
you have to be patient to do. And Michael Ducille had the patience of a tree trunk. So he could sit and do that master Zen
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yoda,
And,
Master Yoda. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
and he'll get, the man had 3 Pulitzers. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've mastered that Zen of patience, because I'm just too hyper. But I understand now more than I ever have. So anyway, just to answer your question, Janico, in that long drawn out babble,
I
is
love it.
it,
I
it
love
was
the
a
babble.
long learning process, and I think I understand it much better today. But it's I think I think that one of the things that most people don't know, that nobody talks about enough in general, is that things take time. And I think that that time, we know time is always an enemy of most photojournalists, or any of us for that matter, right? I mean, yesteryear I was 19 and now I'm 47. You know, what happened? Where did the time go? When did I get this old? When did I get cheeks? You know? So I remember I was gaunt and I needed to eat more mashed potatoes, you know? So so the thing is, so you know, there's a lot of time that's required to with some of the great photojournalists. Like I think about, you know, obviously Carol Guzzi. You know,
Right. Yeah.
I think about even the James Knockway, right? And I look at that work and it's impactful. And that work is we put that in the war and destruction category, right? But moreover, the work is special in that it's work that I don't desire to do. I don't desire to do war and destruction photography, or conflict photography, if you will, right? It's not something I'm interested in. But for them to evoke the compassion and empathy in that work, that is next level. So that's the next level. It's almost like you practice on how to do a photo essay. You then the next level for you is to then transition into narrative photography, like the narrative photojournalism, right? Writing with your camera, writing the story with your camera. And then there's another layer, though, right? So you get to the point where you're like, bam, I can do a photo story. I can tell the narrative. But there's another layer. There's this layer where the photo essay will reach into your gut and rip out your guts. You know, it just, you know, you know, the Pulitzer. This guy's a finalist. The guy won. When I see the picture, I just go, wow, damn, wow, damn. It's the guy from the Turkish earthquake. I think it was in October of 2023, and the father is sitting there at the rubble and holding his daughter's hand, who's dead under the rubble or about to die, you know, holding her hand. I think you can't really see the girl but the hand, and he's holding it. But that single image is just, whoa. There's another one, I can't remember the year, uh, and it's in the Middle East. I'm going to screw it all up. But there's a woman that looks like she's holding back the Israeli army. It's this woman pushing against this,
Yeah.
and it's just and that's a singular image, but it's like, holy cow, look at this picture. So I feel like I wish I could take a picture like that, meaning and not limited to conflict photography, but I wish I could take a picture with that kind of
Yeah.
punch you in the gut, that kind
Yeah.
of impact, you know. I think that's something I wish I could do, and maybe I could. I don't know. I don't think I've ever achieved that yet, and I don't. Again, it doesn't have to be conflict photography, but like, wow, this image changed the world, or you know, like the Steph Curry, not Steph Curry, Steve McCurry,
Yeah.
the photo of the Afghan girl with the green eyes. Think about the
Yeah.
impact of
Yeah.
that image. Everybody knows the image. It's a household image. So I think
Right.
I would love, even at this late stage in my career, I would love to make an image that impacted the world. Like holy cow, you know?
Right.
Right. And that's the
Yeah.
power of journalism. That's the power of photojournalism. So I babbled on, but I just wanted to, Janika, it was a long process. And you know, it was a long process, even me babbling. So
No, I am fascinated. I am completely fascinated. And it makes me think about like I think a lot of the times when we watch photojournalists in their career, they usually bounce around from place to place. But you've been at the same place this entire time, right? So I wonder what that's been like for you, and how it's been like going from the youngin that's getting mentored by everybody else around to becoming the mentor and to helping other people who are where you were. What's that been like?
well, you know what? I find mentoring and teaching very, very easy. Like I find it very easy, and I think about how I still remember when I was young and stuff I didn't know, and stuff and how in some cases people didn't really know how to explain it to me. Part of it they couldn't explain it because they were either bad teachers or they just didn't know how to articulate it. And then some stuff you just have to learn on your own, right? You gotta like you have to experience it yourself, you know. So I love mentoring. Is if I can, whenever I'm asked, can you come to this classroom, or you know, whether it's mentors and or professionals and mentees, I'll do it all. High school, college, workshops. I don't mind doing it. I never mind telling my story because I think I think the example that I can give people is that, you know, I literally have been where you are or where you want to go. Like, you know what I mean? And so I feel
Mhm.
very down to earth and human in that respect. You know, I'm not James Knockway. I'm not Carol Guzzi or, you know, so these household brand names that are just phenomenal, you know, they're known in that regard. So I think, but having worked with Guzzi over the years, it's like, you know, I've stood next to her on a regular protest, and I didn't see what she saw. Like we're standing right next to each other. And I remember one time we were photographing one of these rallies in DC, and we were next to each other. She's taking pictures, and I'm looking at her, and I'm looking over to where she's taking pictures, but I don't see what she's seeing. And I didn't think anything of it. But later on, we were back at the office. And back then, we scanned our negatives into the computer. So we had stations, and we sat next to each other. Anyway, I remember walking past her screen. I was either walking past to go somewhere, and she had the pictures up. And I saw the picture, and I was like, "That's what you shot when I was standing next to you." And I was like, "I didn't even see it." Yeah, but I recognized where it was when I saw it on her screen. And that woman is just brilliant. I can't say anything enough great things about her. She's just absolutely stunning, brilliant, blah blah blah. All that in the bag of chips. And on top of all of it, she's a sweetheart. She has a great tender heart, which is her greatest her greatest strength. It's in her pictures. Anyway, so I,
Anyway.
I love mentoring. I love mentoring. I love mentoring. I don't mind teaching. I don't mind at all. Yes.
I love this, and so again, I know you see me on my phone, but it's for a good reason. I'm starting our inspirational quote book by you. That again, I think it's important. Like, because again, I want photos that they're gonna rip your guts out. Yesterday I was 19, and today, like yesterday I was 19. Today I'm 47. Again, the
Where
patience
did
of
the
a tree
time go?
trunk. There's so many gems. Again, it's not even been
It
30
just comes
minutes
up.
yet, and my life has changed. My life, and again, I was there when Peter Parker was bit by the spider. Like, it's like again, I can't. I would be doing a disservice to everyone if I wasn't taking notes of all this, because I'm going to be using this to inspire. Again, we have a lot of young photographers in the Air Force that come to us, and we're in a
Okay.
position at the Air Force. For Janiqua and I, we run Airman Magazine. And so
Okay.
we are like the Washington Post. We're at a level to where we influence a lot of people because of the scope of the responsibility and the messaging that we put out there. And so when we do receive a lot of young storytellers and photographers that come in, and it's about like finding their character and their personalities and being able to, like you said, for me, not to be a shitty teacher. And for Janiqua to be able to tap into them to get them to be inspired get inspired for strategic messaging, because it's bland as grape nuts. Not great, but again, we have to be excited when we eat it, and the way that we do that and package it together, that's our challenge as being creatives, as being photographers and storytellers, is taking this bland information and presenting it in a way to where people are excited to consume it and they want to share it, they want to talk about it. And again, I'm stealing all of these things, and then we're gonna make a book, and we're gonna inspire the rest of the world with it. And
Well,
so
I'm
thank you,
happy. It.
thank you for
I
that.
hope it helps. Look, I hope it. You know,
Hmm.
we were Janika. We had photographers come back on our team, and they would have like let's say they chopped off an arm or elbow or a foot. And I remember like calling them murderers. I'm like, God damn, you guys are murderers. Look at all these farmers accidents. Look at all these
Yeah.
farmers accidents. And they were confused looking. And I'm like, what the hell? You took a machete and just chopped off their elbow, their hands, their limbs. They don't have any limbs. They're all amputees. And so no farmers accidents.
No,
So it was so
that
funny.
was
I was
you.
messing with them. And they
Oh, that
came
was
back and they were like, They remembered no farmer's accident, no farmer's accident. So they made sure. But I was just poking with them, you know. But it got the point across.
Yes.
Joe Albert, who was our former director of photography many moons ago, he one time I was photographing, I think maybe some kids, and he was editing my negatives, and he said, I'll never forget. It's just amazing. He goes, "Oh, your kids don't have the hatch look." I said, "The what?" He said, "The hatched look." I'm like, "What the hell is that? Joe, what the hell is the hatched look?" He says, "It's when the baby bird breaks out of the eggshell and sees the world for the first time."
I like how you looked up
And I go,
as you're explaining
"Whoa." I'm like, "Oh, yeah." So when he said it that way, I always had the hatched look when I shot kids.
Mhm.
You know, it was great.
it.
It's because
Mhm.
the childlike wonder, it's the next level, y'all. That's what I was talking about. Like, there's that next level. Right now, you have a picture of a kid, but can you show the wonder in that child's eyes? You know, of how he or she sees the world, you know?
Mhm.
So little tidbits like that were, I found fascinating and definitely tried to apply it to my work, you know?
Yeah, no, that was you the entire workshop, right? I watched you go through everyone's edits and mentor all the people on our team. I remember them bringing up farmers' accidents and stuff like that and saying all that stuff back to you. And then I remember when you're putting everything together, one of the lines that sticks in my head is you and Jesse are sitting at the computer going through the images, and you're like, "There's no arm here, but I don't miss the arm. I think it's okay for him to not have an arm." It's the best. Like some of the best.
I don't even. I know you probably walked there like, wait a minute, what did he say?
Right.
You know what? And I'm not going to remember. Like, here's what's crazy. I'm not going to remember because it's so impromptu. It's so on the fly. I won't remember half. I remember the farmer's accident but I remember it because they brought it up. Like,
Mhm.
they were, each of the students were like, "I was out taking pictures and I heard you in my head." You know, it was just so funny. You know, but I wasn't fussing. I was,
Hmm.
just like
It's a
this.
unique delivery.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So I
um,
think
Go ahead.
oh.
Oh no, go ahead.
So going from
Go ahead,
that,
Jimmy.
right? What was it like mentoring at the Eddie Adams workshop for the first time?
You know, I was I I felt very comfortable. Part of it is I had Janiqua and Ann and Jesse, right? They prepped me beforehand, like about what was to come, and it was like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. And I was ready to get into the coaching. You know what I mean? Because I think I think even now I need coaching. Like, I feel like, let's say I'm getting ready to do a photo essay on, cat boxing. You know, I coach me like you're gonna coach that cat. You know, like I want the coaching so I can go and bring back because
1 second. I'm writing. Like, this is going on
You
the
gotta
list.
say, "Coach
Teach
me like
me
you're
like you're
going
gonna
to
teach
coach the
that cat
cat."
boxing.
that, yeah, like I, you remember what was his name? Was this what was Rocky Balboa's? I think it was Mickey. And Mickey was like, "Get up, you son of a bitch!" God, like he's like, I like you need that, you need that, and I think it's so helpful like that. And the coaching doesn't have to be that severe, but like I love if it's nice to be able to plant seeds, right? It's great to be able to plant seeds and then they go and apply it. And then they come back. And the pride in being the teacher is that you're a good teacher because you got through to them.
Mhm.
It Look at what's happening. They applied what you taught them. I think that is extremely rewarding. And so that goes back to the mentoring and coaching and all of that. So, but with all of that said, I still, it's nice to, okay, so you get to a point where you're the pro. You're the pro and or seasoned pro. Okay. And you get to this point, but you still don't know everything. And you still may not be as good as you think you are. You're good. You're very good at what you do. That doesn't mean you can't be better. There is no limit to greatness. There's no limit to greatness. So that doesn't mean you can't get better or be better or continue to evolve. It is important to want to continue to evolve. It is extremely important. And so for me, it's nice to say, hey, we're sending you to Turkey to do a story about how they make salami. But here's the thing. I want to smell the salami. I want to taste the salami when I see your photos. You know what I mean? So I don't want you to just go get pictures of them chopping the salami. I want to know what it smells like. What does it taste like? Isn't it greasy? How does it feel? So I think the best of the best still could use a little coaching. And I think the best of us are very, very open minded. And when you're open minded, what they say, the prepared mind leads to opportunity.
Mhm.
So it's that
Mm-hmm.
same vein of having this open mind and space that you don't know everything, that you still can evolve. I think as long as you allow yourself to evolve, you will.
Mhm.
I feel again a testament to what you said earlier about teaching. I think your delivery is infectious, and it makes it easy to receive it. And again, I'm not. First, I want to preface this by saying I'm not saying I'm in this category of highly skilled professionals, but I feel for a part of that there was an intense look in your eyes. I feel like you were looking at me sort of like a father to a son, and you're like, "Hey, you think you're good, but there's still a lot to learn. Yeah, again, you might be good, you are good, but understand there's still a lot you really need to grasp to become better." And again, I was taken back for a second because I felt, again, you weren't scolding me, but I felt like I was taking a harder look at myself. And again, this is again, Janiqua. Sometimes Janiqua knows I use this as therapy, this podcast, and everyone that's on, and it's not necessarily the healthiest thing. But again, I feel like we peeled a couple layers of this onion off with me today, and that's only thanks to you. And
Well,
but
no, I
yeah.
mean, look, I tell you what, I'm not, I would tell you, you know, I still, I still feel like a rookie. Period. I still feel like a rookie. I don't. It's so weird how one sees themselves versus how others see you. So I don't really I don't take on the mantle of I'm this great photographer or any of that. I'm more like, oh man, I needed to do that better. I need to do this. I wish I could have did that. So I still feel like a student. I still feel like I'm learning. I still feel like a rookie. And even people are like, you're 47, you're not a rookie, but I feel like it. I feel like a rookie. I feel like that 19-year-old. I
Mhm.
still that my exterior ain't 19 no more, but I still feel like, I have a handle on things now that I'm older. I have the wisdom to be like, okay,
Hmm.
I know how to do this. There are things like when I was younger, and I didn't know how I was going to tackle something like photographically, so I would stay for just stupid hours because I did,
Yeah.
just shot everything, and it's out of the sense of insecurity, right? Where
Right.
now I can be like, I have that inside knowledge, the insight to be like, okay, this is what the scenario is. I've been here before. So this is the energy this requires. So okay, I need to do
Hmm.
this, this, and this. And then I've already calculated this might happen, this might happen, this might happen. But for the most part, through past experiences, this is it's probably
Right.
going to go in this direction. And so because of that, I can do things much quickly. I can be like, oh,
Hmm.
that only needed 40 minutes.
Mhm.
It didn't need
Right.
4 hours.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I think
Hmm.
um, that's the beauty of being this seasoned vet, if you will. Like having that insight, you've been there before, so you have a better handle on things. And then there's the anomalies that we can't predict. But wait a minute, last year this is what it was like the cat boxing parade. Well, they let us up
It's a
close.
parade now.
They
It's a
they,
parade.
they let us up. Like and now you got to be meters away with a long lens. So it's like
I can see it.
there's actual footage of cat boxing. It's black and white. Like you've seen it, right? It's like if you go on YouTube or Google, it's like cat boxing, like black and white footage. And I don't know what
My
time
phone.
period it was. I don't know if it was 20s or 30s or 40s. Like, you know,
They were doing.
it's
What were they
ingrained in my. When I
doing?
saw that, yeah,
Hmm.
it's like, oh my
Mobsters.
God, the cats are boxing. You know, so
My phone is hearing. My phone is hearing all of this, and so the algorithm is now going to show me cat boxing. The first, where the
yeah.
immediately when I open up my phone, a cat boxing is going to be the first thing I see.
You're gonna be on
Uh,
TikTok
Wait, and
tonight.
listen, if I find the videos, I think it's one of them images.
Question. So, and I think you created a very great segue into you have this wisdom, and then there is again the 14-year-old you, and then there's a lot of other young professionals that can learn from you. But if you had normally I ask people one thing, but you have so much wisdom from so many different avenues of doing this profession at an extremely high level, whether it's commercial or journalism. But if you had a list of three things that if you were to speak to the 14-year-old version of yourself or a high school student that's actually going to use the dark room for good, Janiqua, what would those three
It was good.
things what would those three things be? It was good, yes. Productive.
Wow, what would I tell my younger self? That's always the hard one. What would I tell my younger self?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
would, you know what? I would start with that. Number one, um, you're good enough. You're good enough.
Hmm.
You can do this. I would say you can do this. You're good enough. I was plagued by a lot of, and I still wrestle with it today, but not as much. But when I was younger, I felt there was a point where I thought, gosh, I shouldn't even be here at the Post. I don't look at these great photographers I'm around. When am I going to take pictures like them? And I dealt with that for a long, long, long time. I just didn't. It wasn't that they did something to me or said anything negative. It was my own demon of like, am I good enough? Do I deserve to be here? When will I make a picture like that? Or when will I win a first place? Or, when will I, So I think there's a lot of, you need to, what I teach everybody today is it is okay to be different because one of the most dangerous things that we can't help and we do it is human nature is we compare ourselves to other people. So I would tell my younger self that you are not other people. You will never be other people, but you can be yourself, and it's okay. Be yourself, be different. You know what I mean? And you're good enough. You are good
Hmm.
enough to do this. And now there's the saying, good enough is never good enough. There's that saying, but that's in the sense of like perfection, like
Right.
constantly
Hmm.
perfecting your craft. Remember the whole there's no limit to greatness. There is that, but this is a little different. This is you are worthy to do what you'd like to do. You have to give yourself the license to do that. No one else is telling you no. No one is telling you you can't do it. You're not talented enough. You're no good. People don't quite talk that way, right? But we talk that way to ourselves. So one of the other things is don't talk negative to yourself. Don't try your best not to speak that into your mindset because it will give you something to focus on instead of the craft that you're trying to get better at.
Hmm.
So I think
And
I
so
needed to hear all of that when I
no,
was younger.
well, I mean, so do you feel like that was in the newsroom when you? Because I know you mentioned like what you had in the newsroom about the village developing and raising everyone. That's not necessarily everywhere back then, and even now. Do you feel
Hmm.
like that was a part of the culture that helped you
Yes,
navigate the
absolutely.
successes?
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't feel as comfortable. Like, I remember when I left the Washington Post for a couple of years. So I worked there 2 years, and then I got a photo internship at Walt Disney World Company, and I worked for the great David Valdez. David Valdez was George Herbert Walker Bush photographer at the White House. He was the chief photographer.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when George Herbert Walker Bush was no longer the president, David Valdez would become the director of photography for the Walt Disney World Company in
What a
Orlando, Florida.
what a transition.
Isn't that something? So I know, right? So I went from the Post as a news aide because I was so basically from what, from 96 to 1998. I'm a news aide in photo because I was a copy aide. And then I moved from the copy aide station to the photo department as a news aide.
Mm.
So remember, I told you when you worked at a
Hmm.
section, you become a news aide. Anyway, so for 2 years, I'm a news aide. Then I leave to go to be an intern at the Walt Disney World Company. I was there for 7 months. And then I went from there to a small paper in Vero Beach. It's called the Press Journal. I don't even know if it's still there now. But anyway, that's where I worked. I was there for like a few months. And then I got a call from Pete Cross, who was the director of photography at the Palm Beach Post at that time, which is in West Palm Beach. So then I went there. So I was there for a year. So basically, there's this 2 year period at the Post, 2 year period gone from the Post. And then Joe Elbert hired me back in 2000 to be in the Howard County Bureau, to be the Howard County Bureau photographer for the Washington Post. This was a time period where many of the newspapers everywhere had bureaus. And in the Washington Post case, each county had their own section, their own, tabloid section, if you will. It doesn't exist today. But anyway, he liked the work I was doing and said, okay, we need that work in the metro section, which is in the main. So now you got to come downtown now. So then it was this whole progression, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
now I got to work with him because now he's the Phil Jackson,
Right,
he's the
right.
Phil
Yeah,
Jackson
yeah.
coach.
Pressure,
So
pressure.
and that's so now it's like, oh no, So I got the tough love from him too, and Michael Ducille. But anyway, you know there's this I'm trying to think where was the question because I can go off on these tangents.
Well, wait, no, I know you were hitting it perfectly. It's as you talked about again the culture of the uniqueness of the Washington Post, and when it came to developing to make
Yeah.
like you felt worthy, like the list of things that you would tell the younger self, and also associating that with that's not necessarily everywhere in every environment, and so the
Yes,
uniqueness
yes.
of what you had in your path.
Yeah, and it was very unique. It really was. It was very unique at that time. Today, I feel like and now I can't really speak for even at the Palm Beach Post, I felt like it was an amazing team. Once again, I
Hmm.
felt unworthy because I'm like, oh my God, I'm around these folks. They're just heavyweights. Oh my gosh, I'm nowhere near this good. So again, it's hard to not go down that path when you're a young pup. It's hard because you're looking at these folks, you see what they can do, and you're like, I want to do that. I want to be able to do that. I want to make a great picture. But that team made me feel very welcome. They never, again, it was a very welcoming environment. And so I think when you have this sense of family, I guess that feeling,
Hmm.
it's like, look, it's us. Do you? We're here. If you need help, we'll help you. That it was that
Yeah,
environment at the Palm Beach Post and at the Washington Post. You know what I mean? So it was, I had it good in that sense. You know what I mean? I had it good. I
yeah,
had
yeah.
I had great villages, and you need
Hmm.
it when you are young because I think the teachings really trying to cultivate, I think, cultivate your vision and how important that is. That's the next step. That's the next level in your storytelling, in your photojournalism. And notice I said in your, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's what makes you unique. The poetry of Robert Capa, or
right.
Cartier-Bresson or whoever, all of the
Yeah.
greats that we've learned about in photography as well as photojournalism, or even an Annie Leibovitz in her own discipline, in that world of celebrity portrait and all of that stuff, or Richard
Hmm.
Avedon and all for fashion. Each of them were allowed, but the allowing is they allowed themselves
Mhm.
first. That's
I
the
love that.
key,
Yeah.
is allowing yourself to have a decision, to make the decision, to say, I'm going to do this. And then have the wherewithal to do it, follow through and do all of that
Right.
stuff.
Mhm.
I love that. And so I have one big question left, and then I'll stop hijacking it from Janiqua, and I'll let her bring us in for all of her questions and a smooth landing
Sure, sure.
because she definitely does it better. But so for me, I know you spoke about this somewhere else, but the power of the icebreaker. I think it's not talked about enough, and then I think sometimes people may have pigeonhole it into it being something specific. Can you talk to us about the power of the icebreaker into achieving a successful outcome? Again, whether it's journalism or whether it's commercial work, and is there any fun stories that you have to go along with that?
Okay, icebreakers. Let's see. Well, you could imagine I have a ton of them. Like, I, I,
I
I
can
think
only.
I think my ice breaking is very abnormal. I mean, it's probably equivalent to getting hit by a truck.
Top shelf.
You
I would
know,
say top shelf.
like just, oh my gosh, what just happened? What's happening here? Um, I think I feel very comfortable around people, and I think because of that, because there is a fearlessness in that. I feel very comfortable talk. It's very natural for me to talk to people. It's not I'm scared to talk to you. I'll go up to you and talk, even if you know what I mean. Very rarely do people not engage. If it could be something like it's as easy as uh, I'll give you an example. Let's say uh, there's a woman and she's got her compact open and she's fluffing her hair and put on lipstick. And if I'm walking by and I see that, I'll say, "Girl, you already look good. You don't have to do all that." And then they'll laugh. They'll laugh and they'll smile. And so you see how easy that was? That's no
Hmm.
different from me being in a grocery store and somebody picks up a sweet potato and I'm near them and I go, "Oh, that was mine. I wanted that one." And they start laughing. So I do stuff like that all the time. It's easy, it's funny. They get a good laugh and we keep it moving. So so the icebreaker, the art of the icebreaker, it is important. I think we each have our way to do it. My goal is I want you to be comfortable enough to do you, be yourself, so that I could capture your essence, your natural essence. So whatever I got to do to make you feel comfortable, um, I think the hardest part is to make yourself invisible, right? I think Guzzi's mastered the invisible woman. She can
Hmm.
make herself completely invisible and get these images. It's like, damn, they didn't see her. They don't even know she's there. So I think I have too much of a presence to do that, but I try. Okay, I'll try to make myself invisible, but I fail miserably at it. But the icebreaker is important because the icebreaker. What is the point of the icebreaker? What's the point of it? The point is so that people will ignore you, so that people can feel comfortable. The key word is comfortable. This icebreaking is to make you comfortable enough so that I can capture you. And it's not about me. So whatever you got to do that, but it's, in the safest terms possible, in the safest, nicest way you can. Because you don't want to be a pushover,
Hmm.
So I'm a nice guy. I like catching more flies with honey. So I'm not a pushover. If I'm taking pictures and somebody doesn't want their photo taken, for every 5 people that say don't take my picture, I have 600 that say take my picture. So I don't sweat it. I'm like, okay, I let it go. It's gone, and I'm gonna move on. And so the ice breaking, though, when it comes to doing photo essays and stuff, your subject definitely has to be comfortable. They have to be used to you, and so you got to figure out what your bag of tricks is. I tell them you need a Batman utility belt. I tell people that you need a Batman. You got to have the smoke bombs, and throw them down and have distractions, the grappling hook. You got to make yourself disappear. Every photographer needs a Batman utility belt. Every photographer and or photojournalist, you need a Batman's utility belt. Yeah.
So one of the things that I remember the most from your talk when we were at Eddie Adams was you were talking about how your mind works versus how other people's mind works, right? And you were saying that a cockroach
Okay.
could climb on the wall right here, and everybody else would be like, "Ah, it's a cockroach," and you'd be like, "But did you see the way the light hit it?" And where is he going? And so I want to talk a little bit about
What's going
that
on the
and
list?
how and how your mind has allowed you to create some of these
You
most
remember
like
that?
wonderful images and beautiful images.
You know what is? I think my point in that particular scenario was about keeping an open mind,
Mhm.
right? It's about keeping an open mind to the possibilities, to the infinite possibilities. Keeping your mind open for the infinite possibilities. So if I was saying how the way the light hits that cockroach, oh my God, I want to do a photo shoot with a cockroach brown backdrop. You know what I mean? So I got inspired by the color of a cockroach.
Mhm. Mhm.
And therefore, I birthed a concept, a theme in which I'm going to do a photo shoot with. One of the things that I do now more now than anything is I do a lot of portraiture and a teeny bit of wannabe fashion and editorial work. And you're constantly trying to flex your creative muscles. So I leave my mind as open as possible. And in that conversation, I was talking about how I was inspired. The question was, how are you inspired to create all of this stuff? And I was telling them how everything inspires me: cartoons, video games, commercials, movies. And the extreme example was, for example, a brown cockroach can crawl up on the wall and the light hits it. You know what I mean? And that color, cockroach brown background. Oh my God, that's what we're gonna do. And then boom. So it's like being able to like allow your mind to receive all kinds of creative messages. And then you want to try to translate that into something. You want to create something with it. So for me, I revel in that. You know what I mean? I revel in that. I think that's how we get some of these amazing pictures. Irving Penn, I mean, had this brilliant mind, and much more methodical than I am, just methodical, and this is what I want. And he drew inspiration from things and was able to map that out. Um, I think that's like, it's not the hardest part. You've got to receive the creative message, and then you have to figure out how you want to translate it.
Mhm.
How do you want to interpret it? So that's what that was about. That's what that was about.
Yeah, can you? That brings the one image in my mind of like the model with the gold mask on and her pulling it off and the expression while she's pulling it
Oh,
off of her face. Can you talk about that moment and how you got there in that shoot?
so that photo shoot was a lot of fun. That was that model's name is Monica. And anyway, the the stylist, her name is Cherie. The stylist, we wanted to photograph her, and she's not a model; she's an accountant. We saw her at a model call, and she normally just does like runway stuff because she has long legs. So when I saw her and Cherie saw her, we were like, "Oh my gosh, do you want to talk to her or do I talk to her?" So we have got a photo. Let's do a photo shoot with her. Let's do a photo shoot with her. So anyway, Monica immediately says, "Sure, I'll do it." So she was like, "Nobody ever really photographs her. She just does runway and keep it moving." So I said, "No, we're gonna do a killer photo shoot of you." So anyway, Cherie photographs herself and sends me this picture. And it's a picture of her with this gold mask on. And she has nothing, she has a towel on, but it's wrapped around her. Now, I'm like, what are you sending me these kind of pictures? Your husband gonna see this, you know? And she's
Right,
like,
you're right.
and she starts laughing. And she's like, no, look at the face. I'm like, I see the gold mask. She just had on like this Noxema looking mask, but it was gold. And so she said that, what if we took this mask and put it on Monica? I was like, really? I didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay, go ahead and bring it. Her point was, I want to bring this to the photo shoot. And so I was like, okay, bring it. I don't know, but go ahead and bring it. So anyway, we did all of these shoots and looks, and then we saved that for last, because you got to put it on the makeup and all that jazz. So anyway, Monica, they apply the gold mask, 24 karat gold mask to her face. And I looked at it and I was like, nah, it's too cheesy. It looks cheesy. I don't like it. So she got ready to, we gave it a try. My point was, hey, we gave it a try. It didn't work. No harm, no foul. She gets ready to pull the mask off. And I'm looking at her pull it off because she's wincing. She's doing this. And I said, wait a minute, when you, does that hurt when you pull that? And she goes, yeah, I think I have some hair, like fine hair, and it hurts. I said, pull it harder, pull it harder, pull it harder. And so that's how I got that picture. Because as she pulled it harder, she's like, I'm like, yes, pull it harder. And I started taking pictures. So that's how I got that photo. Her pain was my awesome image.
Everyone's win.
What
So
was
that's
she
how I
like when
got
she
that
saw
photo.
the image?
Oh, she loved it. She loved it. The public, it actually ran in the Post magazine, and she's got copies of it. Yeah, she loved it. Yeah,
Amazing.
but it was just funny that her pain became my art. You know, you
There
know,
we go.
isn't that
There it
awesome? Isn't
is.
that terrible?
That's
You
going
know,
in the book. There we go. That's in the book.
It bees
Her
like
pain
that
is my art.
sometimes. You know, as military photographers and stuff, some of the best pictures you get is at the end of the ruck. You know, they've done 12 miles, they are beat down
Mm-hmm.
and tired, and that's where all the expression comes out. They have
Mm-hmm.
nothing left and they're ready to die, you know?
They're ready
I
to
just,
die.
and I didn't even. The thing is, I was ready to be like, yeah, get out of here. And it's like, whoa, whoa. You know. So it was a. I would say that keeping that open mind again. Sometimes that unexpected situation is golden.
Mhm.
It's golden. It's rewarding. You didn't even. Wow, I wasn't even thinking this. And look at this. How many
Mm-hmm.
times have we done photo shoots, whether they're portraits or otherwise, and you did all of this other stuff, and then there's this one off scenario, and it's the gem.
Mhm.
And you go, wow, this completely eclipses everything I've done the last 2 hours. You
Right.
know, this is it. That only took 2 to 3 minutes. This moment right here, you know?
Yep, exactly. One of the things I had to learn, you know, dealing with that imposter syndrome and not feeling good enough and stuff, is that comparison is a thief of your joy, right? You can only see how you see. And if you're so busy trying to make yourself see like
hmm
someone else, you'll never get to how you actually see. And you gotta have to bring you to your work.
And it's challenging. I do believe like our greatest artists have imitated other people. So there's nothing wrong with that, right? Often imitated, never duplicated. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's okay to try to mimic.
Mhm.
I think if you admire a particular photographer's work or whomever, whatever that is, singers do it too.
Mhm.
Singers do it. They try to mimic this whoever's great in their mind and try to maybe I can try to do that. And eventually you will have your own voice. You will have your own way of doing something. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's okay. I don't think it's any harm in that. In fact, if I was teaching, I probably would teach in that manner. I probably would say, hey, um, I want the class, I want you to see this photo right here. I want you to try to recreate this photo.
Mhm.
Let's say whether if it's a studio photo, I want you to try to recreate this photo right here. And it's a good lesson because I used to try to do it when I was younger. And I realized all along I was never going to be able to recreate it like quite like the photographer because that photographer has 6 lights or four
Mm-hmm.
lights or 3 lights and I only had one little flash. Or but I don't notice. And I'm like, Dad, how come mine don't look like this? So it's an exercise.
Mhm.
It's an exercise in your mind to challenge it and try to work at something. So I think there's some really good. Uh, I think there's some good exercise in trying to imitate initially,
Mhm.
right? You're trying to. It's your trainer's wheels, if you will. It's your trainer's wheels. Yeah.
Yep. So, and then you got to take them off. And my sister had training wheels growing up, and she had worn them down to where it was just metal on both sides, and they were also bent. So as she was riding down the
Oh
street, she
no.
would lean to one
Oh.
side or the other, and sparks would fly behind her. So eventually, you know, they got to come off. They got to go.
Oh my gosh.
This is a true story. You can
Oh,
ask my
and look, and
mom.
she realized all along she didn't need it.
Right? You're riding. You're
She
doing
didn't
Oh
it.
need it after a
no.
while, right? She once she took them off, yeah, yeah,
Flying.
yeah. The rest is history. I mean, I tell you what, I, I, I remember watching my youngest brother. It was a joy. He loved riding his bike. They had trainers wheels, and I just remember the day that they came off, and he rode it. It was so natural because he was so used to it
Mhm.
that once they came over, we were like, "Oh my gosh, you ride without the trainers wheels!" It was exciting. It was an exciting moment. It really was.
We
It's
love to see
special
it.
on ways you couldn't even imagine.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It's like wow, the baby bird has left the nest. Look, they're flying. And it's funny. It's funny. When do you know you're flying?
Hmm.
Like when do you know? Like wait, I'm still in the air. I'm actually, I'm actually flying. Like there's that moment that hits all of us. Um, and it'll hit you. It will hit you. Like, wow, I can do this. That's what that is. Wow, I can do this. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? And then you start, as one editor would say, you keep adding things to your hard drive. You keep
Mm-hmm.
adding things and adding things. And all of that stuff makes you sharper, smarter. It helps with your evolution. It, in some cases, helps shape your ideas about things. And in my case, I constantly want to have all of these avenues of creativity. I want to do it all. I want to try it all. I'm like, wow, I've never photographed somebody in a parachute. Or like, or I've never, you just come up with these. And one of the things I tried to do, like on my Instagram, right? Like in the beginning, I'd say like 10 years ago, is I wanted to go through, I went through this thing where I was like, I do a lot of my work for the Post, and a lot of it is you shoot the assignment and that becomes you. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, you know what? I got into photography because I really liked it. I never shoot things for me. I used to like, I got into photography because, wow, I like that tree bark. Wow, I like those leaves. What about the sky? Why can't I take pictures of that stuff, huh? Who says I can't?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I decided to start making pictures for me. I was like, so that way I have this outside outlet
Mm-hmm.
so that my photography doesn't become work,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I love photography for photography. I don't want to be like, oh, that's work. I don't feel like picking up a camera. I don't want to feel like that, right? And so I think it's important for a lot of people to also like have personal work
Mm-hmm.
or have something that you're very passionate about that what if you like taking pictures of cars or real estate or bugs?
Right.
I don't know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
okay, like,
Cockroaches
to
on the
just have
wall.
that. Yeah. Next thing you know, you're like some like rich elite person is spending 55K for your bug.
Right.
Like,
Again,
yeah.
going in the book. Going in the book. No. Well, again, well, again, speaking about adding to hard drives, and also again, we've had you here forever, and I know we want to add at least one more thing to our hard drive before you go. And this is a question I know Janiqua and I both love, and we pass it off back and forth. Janiqua, again, I would love for you to deliver the final blow in today's interview.
So, you've mentioned a lot of iconic
Oh
images,
my God.
both of your own and of other people, some of the greats, And so we have to ask, what is your all time number one favorite photo? It can be yours, it can be one that you've seen, just like what's the one that grabs you and kind of rips at your guts?
Oh
There we
man.
go.
Rips out your guts. Like, gosh, this is really hard because I love photography. I love so many different kinds of photos. I'm trying to think. Gosh, I'm trying to think what I like. It's so many. Like, it's just like it's so many images. Man, I'm trying to think of like all time favorite.
The beauty of the question.
Mm-hmm,
Well,
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
again, it's one of those things is that there's no wrong answer. There's only yours, but the pressure really relies in the understanding that everyone is going to judge you off of this until you go on another podcast and give a different answer.
Mm-hmm.
no, no. You know what? I tell you what I've talked about before in the past that I love, and it's a photojournalism picture, but it's in the vein of the human experience, it's a picture that the controversy. People always have different opinions about Eugene Richards. Um, but this is what I'll say: he took a photo many moons ago of, and you'll have to Google this so you can show it. But it's a picture
Mm-hmm.
of it's a summertime photo in New York, and there's this woman in a kiddie pool, and so she's in the kiddie pool. Or is it a girl in the kiddie pool? It's probably a girl. And then surrounding her are kids playing around the hydrant and throwing water. But it's such a well composed, just visceral moment. Like, it's hot as hell, it's
Mm-hmm.
sweltering. You could feel the heat, yet you could feel the joy and comfort in all of that heat in this one photograph.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those pictures that I love and I wish I had taken. It's a picture that I wish I could take. It's just one, when you work as a newspaper photographer, there are oftentimes you have to run out and say, hey, we need a weather feature. We need, because it's sweltering. We need something that reflects that. To this date, I know that if I shot that photo, that would be our front page picture.
Mhm.
Like it's
Yeah.
one of those things. Like, that's the kind of weather photo I want to make. So that's as basic as I can give you. But I love photography and other photographers' works. Is so many great images. I mean, I mentioned some of them earlier on the conflict photography front, right? The
Hmm.
woman holding back all the all
Right.
of those. But that photo hits me for what it is. It's not a picture that I wish I had taken. But
Mm.
that Eugene Rich picture, I wish I had taken it because he probably was taking it because he was doing street photography. Where I'm looking at that like, damn, that would be a great weather picture
Right.
for the metro section or for the A section, you know? Like,
I love it. I love it. And I don't think a better note that we could walk away on than with that. It's a great example for people how to look at life, look at opportunities, and reflect on. And I know I'll leave us with one final remark, one big takeaway from me that I'll share with everyone when I get into work next week is, again, if you want to be able to navigate success, you're going to need Batman's utility belt. And at all times, keep your hands off my sweet potato.
yes.
But again, Marvin, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for these incredible gems, this incredible knowledge and insight that I know we get a lot of young student photographers that listen to us, a lot of young professionals, and for them to get to know you. And there's going to be potential applicants that get into this year's workshop. This is going to be a great way for them to get to know you, to have that confidence to come say hello at the workshop, because they're going to know your personality and they're not going to cheat themselves out of an incredible conversation. They don't know what they're going to get when they come say hello, but they know they're going to walk away with a smile on their face.
Well, I'm
But again,
always
no,
me.
Marv,
I'm always me.
thank you. We don't want to soak up too much more of your Thursday. Thank you
Okay.
for joining us here today.
No, it was my pleasure. Seriously. Thanks for having me. This is great.